Hello everyone and welcome to Friday Night Countdown with me, Rich Hagon, and him, Brian David-Marshall.
We're here at Card Kingdom in Seattle, kicking off another great week of Magic, ready to bring you the lowdown on all the action from Pro Tour Return to Ravnica.
With 5 guilds and 3 booster packs, Return to Ravnica Draft brought us a ton of great new strategies.
Yeah, but first we're going to talk about Constructed and the winning modern deck list from Pro Tour Return to Ravnica. And for that, we're going to need a kitchen. Pro Tour Return to Ravnica champion Stanislav Cifka won the event with his update on the classic Eggs archetype. Second breakfast. Eggs are any kind of artifact that you can break for a useful effect, be it mana, card drawing, or a unique ability like putting cards on the bottom of your library. A great example of an egg is Lotus Bloom. Another card that might do something similar to that is Chromatic Star or Chromatic Sphere. And then what you can do is you can take those cards and break them for card drawing and mana. From there, you have cards like Elsewhere Flask and Conjurer's Bauble and, you know, maybe another Chromatic Star. And then you break those cards as well. You break the eggs, you draw cards, and you rip through your deck. You're looking for copies of Second Sunrise. You're looking for copies of Faith's Reward. And really what you want to do is just get all these cards into your graveyard and then bring them back, drawing more and more cards. And then finally, you bring all these cards back onto the battlefield. And then what you do is, you know what? Maybe we should just let Stanislav Cifka tell us about the deck in his own words. Hi everybody, this is Brian David-Marshall coming to you from the Tournament Center at Pro Tour Return to Ravnica here in Seattle. And here with me is 15-0 Stanislav Cifka from the Czech Republic. Stanislav, how does that feel to be 15-0? Is that like anything you would have ever dreamed about coming to the Pro Tour?
Well, it's like I'm still dreaming and I'm afraid that I'm gonna wake up, you know.
How many games have you lost this weekend so far?
2.
2 games.
Yeah.
So you're, just to do the math, I'm not very good at math, 30-2 in games this weekend. Okay, so you're playing the deck, people have been calling it Second Breakfast. I like to refer to it as the Artistry, formerly known as Eggs.
Yeah.
And let's take a look at what makes this deck work. If you could, this is sort of like, this is like the pistons in the engine of your deck, right?
Yeah, you play like many artifacts that you can cycle for drawing another card.
So Chromatic Star costs 1, and then for 1 mana you can sacrifice. So you can chain these together.
Yeah. Like play as many artifacts as you can, then in one turn you sacrifice all of them.
So you have Chromatic Star, Chromatic Sphere, Conjurer's Bauble, which costs 1. It's free to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And
it's also necessary for the combo.
Right, lets you put 1 target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library, draw a card.
Yeah,
and then Elsewhere Flask. So that when it comes to play, draws a card, and then it's free to sacrifice, which is also pretty important.
Yeah.
So
you play a bunch of artifacts and then you sacrifice them and.
Sure. So 16 of those that all sort of draw a card for you. Let's take a look at the next package, Lotus Bloom. All right. So we're watching a match, and we're watching the sort of the pre-game feed, and I'm like, is Cifka gonna keep a no-land hand? Is that even possible? And of course, the thing that made it possible was 2 Lotus Blooms.
Yeah, like if you suspend a Lotus Bloom on turn 1, it's gonna go up on turn 4, and it's usually allows you to kill in the same turn. And it's also possible to find it with reshape. And
so for UU and X, where X equals 0, you could sacrifice a Chromatic Star.
Yeah.
And then go get a Lotus Bloom. And put it into play. So it's almost like a ritual where you get to go from 2 mana up to 3 mana. So reshape gets you the Lotus Bloom. So you have all these artifacts that draw you a card when they come to play. They're all easy to sacrifice. This gives you 3 mana, easy to sacrifice. You can reshape it into play. How are we making this all come together? Let's take a look at the next slide. Second Sunrise, this is a card, this was always at the heart of the Eggs deck. But there were only 4 of them, and you really, you would get really desperate as you're digging through your deck to find the next one. You just had to keep digging until You got to Magic 2013.
Yeah, it was really important for the deck. Yeah.
So Faith's Reward, it basically does the same thing as Second Sunrise, costs one more, one fewer white mana. So tell us how that works.
Like you play a bunch of artifacts and you cycle it.
Walk us through, walk us through the no mana game. How did that work? Turn 4, 2 Lotus Blooms come into play, you have no lands in play, what do you do?
Like I sacrifice the both Lotus, get 6 mana, play some artifacts like Chromatic Star, Chromatic Sphere, draw a bunch of cards and then return it with Second Sunrise.
So then the Lotus Blooms come back into play.
Yeah, and the artifacts as well.
The Chromatic Stars come back into play.
So you like draw more and more cards with every copy you play, you cast more and more artifacts, reshape the Lotus and getting more and more mana. Then you get to the stage that you draw a whole library.
So you can actually, on turn 4, draw your whole library.
Like, actually I did it once on turn 2.
How did you do it on turn 2?
Like, it's very unusual. It happens like once per 100 game or something like that.
Okay.
But I played Chromatic Star on turn 1 from Goose Quarter, and on turn 2 I sack Fetch Land, destroy the land with Goose Quarter, so I get 2 lands, reshape the Chromatic Star for Lotus Bloom, get back with Second Sunrise, so the lands came back as well, so I get like 6 mana now, and I cast more artifacts.
So Ghost Quartering your own land to get a land.
Yeah.
If you have fetch lands,
it goes back
and they go into the graveyard that turn, they'll all come back into play, so you get the land that you got, the extra land that you got, the land that you sacrificed, the Ghost Quartered land, the fetch land.
Yeah, everything goes back, and then you can draw.
And so you can actually go, you went from 0 lands in the game that we watched on camera.
Yeah.
You went to 0 lands to, I think, 4 lands in one turn.
Yeah, it's with fetch land you can like find some more
pretty
lands.
exciting. So, and then ultimately you do all that, and it's so helping you along the way. You have Serum Vision, Sleight of Hand, Gataxian Probe to help you sort of dig through your deck.
It's really important after a sideboard game when you are fetching for answer. Like if your opponent play like some graveyard hate or you're gonna need specific cards, it's really helpful after board to find it. Yeah, so it's really important.
And then ultimately, what you want to find is a Pyrite Spellbomb.
Yeah, well, usually you're gonna find it.
You're right. You dig through your whole deck. So you play the Pyrite Spellbomb, you sacrifice
and return it with
you do
Second
2,
Sunrise,
and it comes back. And then, so I've seen multiple games where your deck is just 8 Second Sunrises, Conjurers bobbling them to the bottom.
Yeah.
And
then infinitely go. Yeah.
So you can just like 2 points at a time.
Yeah, every time. Yeah.
And I think, do we have another slide here? So we have your lands. Actually, you also have Silence in the deck?
Yeah, I have Silence in
One, two?
2 of them.
2 Silence. So that's like in any combo deck, you're just...
Yeah, I need to protect, and also it helps you, like, if you're gonna kill your opponent on turn 4 with Lotus, it can buy you a turn if you silence your opponent and he can cast a spell, so it's really important.
So Ghost Quarter we already talked about, Scalding Tarn, Misty Rainforest. Why do you mix them up? Why not just...
There's like possibility that someone's gonna extirpate your Surgical Extraction the land, and you can theoretically have more in hand, or they can needle it. But yeah, it's really theoretically, but it's no reason to not mix it.
Right. It's just free to be able to split it. Okay. And then you have some islands and plains on top of that.
7 islands and 1 plane.
It's okay. And then your sideboard. This card seems pretty important to me in a field full of Jund.
Yeah, it's definitely true.
So 35% of the field is Jund, and then you're just bringing this in all the time against them?
Yeah. Like, if you have the Leyline Insensitive in hand, it's really good because it stops like half of your opponent's deck. They can't spell. Discard spells, they can play Jund Charm. Right. Yeah, Slaughter Games.
Jund Charm removes your graveyard from the game target, so they can't target you.
Yeah, Bolt is unable to play, so yeah, it's like destroy half of their deck, so it's fine.
So we see another Silence over there. When are you bringing in a Grape Shot?
Grape Shot is quite interesting against Jan, because in one game it happened to me that my opponent Slaughter Game me, and he chose Pirate Spellbomb because he thought it's the only win condition, and I switched it for Grape Shot, so it did nothing.
He didn't even get the Pirate Spellbomb?
Yeah, no, I didn't have in deck, so yeah. And it's also like, it might be important if your opponent like extirpate a Lotus Bloom that you can get infinite mana for Pirate Spellbomb, so you can like use double Grape Shot or something like that.
Okay. Now I've heard you've been a little tricky with the deck. I heard stories of you suspending a Lotus Bloom, and your opponent's so focused on that Lotus Bloom, it's like, oh my gosh, his Lotus Bloom's coming into play next turn, and then you just win the turn before.
Yeah, it sometimes happens. Like, because it's usually good against the deck to prepare like everything when Lotus is coming, but if your hand is really good, you can go off like and surprise your opponent if he's tape out or something.
Okay, so everyone wants to know, you're 15-0. Will you play round 16?
We'll see. Probably I will, but who knows?
Would it be, you said it was a dream earlier, would it be like a dream to go 16-0? Would that be something you would be enormously proud of?
Yeah, it would be very nice.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to wish you the best of luck. Signing off for Stanislav Cifka from the Tournament Center, this is Brian David-Marshall.
A great deck played by a great champion in a great format.
Yeah, no matter what your playstyle is, the modern format has a deck for you. Let's take a closer look at some of the archetypes we saw in action at Pro Tour Return to Ravnica.
Daniel Royd guided us through a cornerstone of the format, Jund, a black-green-red deck that anyone playing Modern needs to reckon with. Thanks to powerful planeswalkers, efficient removal, and the game's best creatures, it's easy to see why Jund was the most played deck at Pro Tour Return to Ravnica.
One of the game's rising stars, Shahar Shenhar, demonstrated why Delver of Secrets is making a big impact on Modern, just like it did in Standard. If swatting insectile aberrations wasn't difficult enough, his deck could change the rules of engagement with a devastating Reanimator sideboard plan.
Raphael Levy once again attacked the constructed format from an original angle. Zombie Station harnessed the power of the dredge mechanic to fill the graveyard with Vengevines, Gravecrawlers and Bloodghasts as fodder for its blasting station. The unexpected addition of Dregscape Zombie pulled the deck together.
Ari Lax conducted a masterclass in his deck tech on his 9th place finishing black-blue-green Infect deck. A 3-color army of Infect creatures backed by an arsenal of green pump spells ranging from Giant Growth to the newly modern Legal Rancor. His was a combo deck capable of winning as early as turn 2.
Few people saw Niv Major's Elemental coming. Someone who did was Jerry Thompson. His Elemental combo deck was the most exciting deck in the entire field, chock full of cards that nobody picked for the Fantasy Pro Tour. The Elemental gets larger and larger as you exile your own spells from the stack before they resolve. Armed with 16 functionally free spells, Thompson could also manage a turn 2 kill. Thousands of you joined us for the Fantasy Pro Tour, and we've got all the results right here. The number 1 Planeswalker was Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah, this isn't very surprising, Rich. Jund was the most played deck in the tournament. It was over 35% of the metagame. Liliana of the Veil, a big part of that deck.
The small creature was Tarmogoyf.
Again, we're going to have to talk about Jund, but we also have to talk about cards like decks like Rug Delver, which this is a big part of. It can easily be a 5/6 creature as early as turn 3 or 4 in this format.
Once you get to middle creatures, well, we're dealing with Multicolor and Bloodbraid Elf.
Sure, again, we go back to Jund, number 1 played deck. A huge part of what makes that deck tick. It lets you cascade into cards like Liliana of the Veil and Tarmogoyf and other instants and sorceries that appear later on in our results.
There weren't an awful lot of large creatures running around in Modern this weekend, but the 2 that tied for first place were Kiki Jiki Mirrorbreaker and Wormcoil Engine.
Yeah, we thought we might see Primeval Titan at this tournament with the unbanning of Valakut, but that search turned out to be about as fruitful as looking for the Loch Ness Monster. Wormcoil Engine, a big sideboard in control matchups, and of course Kiki Jiki was a big part of the Infinite Combo that was the last Modern winning Pro Tour.
Okay, let's move to some spells. Instant, Lightning Bolt.
Killing players and creatures since 1993.
Sorcery, that was Thoughtseize.
Yeah, when we see people in the Jund matchups taking apart people's hands. We saw it in the sideboard of Ari Lax's Bug Infect deck. Just an incredibly versatile card that gives you information and disrupts your opponent's game plan.
The top enchantment at this Pro Tour was Blood Moon.
Yeah, tons of non-basic lands running around in this format. People trying to do a lot of different things, trying to have access to a lot of different colors, and people were playing Blood Moon in their main deck and just cutting people off from access to their mana, saying, do what you want to do, but you can only do it with red mana.
The most popular artifact, that was Relic of Progenitus.
Sure, we saw the winning deck list was a graveyard-based combo deck. We see people playing Snapcaster Mage all over the place. It's no wonder that people wanted to have access to Relic of Progenitus, which can wipe away both players' graveyards in their sideboards.
So many non-basic lands to choose from, but the most popular, Verdant Catacombs.
Sure, this is one of the fetch lands that lets you get cards like Overgrown Tomb, Godless Shrine, Blood Crypt, Stomping Ground. You can get any of those 4 lands on turn 1 and enact your game plan. So no doubt that this was going to be a popular card.
And if you were still tied with your friends, well then you needed the #1 player. And of course that was our champion, Stanislav Cifka. Get on Facebook and find out how you did in this Fantasy Pro Tour.
We just spent the whole weekend watching the game's top pros drafting Return to Ravnica. Now it's our turn.
I love drafting Azorius, so when I open a pack, I'm really wanting a Liev Sky Knight. It does everything that Azorius is good at. 3/1, it flies through the air. Most important, it has Detain, and that gives you the time to smash face.
Well, when you're drafting Selesnya, you want to make tokens, and then you want to make copies of those tokens with Populate. The card you're looking for when you open up a pack is Vitu-Ghazi Guildmage. It has both the signature abilities of Selesnya on 1 card. And, the pros were referring to it as a mythic uncommon, so you know it's got to be really good.
If I'm drafting Rakdos, I want removal, removal, removal. Or Gaspri, fantastic at making their things dead. As for Unleash, I'll pick some of those up later on in the draft.
When you're drafting Izzet, you know the game's going to come down to big, expensive spells, and you really need the time to get there. Frostborn Weird, with its 4 toughness for 2 mana, is a perfect creature to get you the turns you need to overload the game and win.
For the Golgari, they want to trade off their creatures early in the game. A card that's great for that is Dreg Mangler. 3/3 with haste for 3 mana. And then, when it dies, well, then you get a nice big bump to your next wave of creatures.
You know what? Enough of this talking. Let's draft.
Now it's time here on Friday Night Countdown for our milestone moment. And BDM, this time around, it actually happened before round 1.
Yeah, Rich. Pro Tour Return to Ravnica got underway with the induction ceremony for the 2012 class of the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour Hall of Fame. And 4 of the game's best players took their place alongside the game's elite.
So let's start with Patrick Chapin, incredibly innovative deck designer. You can speak to any number of great decks.
Yeah, he had a
him.
Snap Cradle deck back at Pro Tour New York during Urza's Block Constructed that I think was secretly one of the best decks of that tournament. And Pro Tour Kyoto, won by Gabriel Nassif, he won that with a Patrick Chapin deck design.
Okay, now he has 4 Pro Tour top 8s as a player, never mind the decks. But I guess I always think of him most of all as a community leader, someone who has introduced through his writing so many players to the joys of the game.
Next up was Masashi Ueso, and you think back to that 2005 Pro Tour season when a time when Japanese players didn't go to North American Grand Prix,
Sure.
and Masashi Ueso led this entourage of Japanese Magic players to Grand Prix Boston, and he won the whole thing on a bluff. Just this incredible breakout season for Japanese Magic in 2005.
Sure, because of course that culminated at Worlds with a team world title for Ueso and teammates.
Yeah, and along the way, 6 Pro Tour top 8s, and just one of the game's really just great strategic players.
You mentioned 6 Pro Tour top 8s. Someone else with 6 Pro Tour top 8s made the hall this time around, and that's Kenji Samura, and just a tremendous player. Whenever he turned up to European Grand Prix, it was real rock star status.
It wasn't just European Grand Prix. When he showed up to American Grand Prix, when he showed up to Japanese Grand Prix, if they had a Grand Prix in Antarctica and he showed up, the Penguins would all be applauding. He's just one of the most popular players of all time.
He's also one of the most successful Player of the Year in 2005.
Fittingly, the leading vote getter for this class was Paulo Vitor Damarosa of Brazil. Just an amazing player, right? 9 Pro Tour top 8s. He's got that win in San Juan, and he is the most successful player ever to come out of South America.
He's only 25. He keeps going. He could kind of rewrite the record books.
Yeah, anything's possible for him still. It's an amazing addition to an amazing Hall of Fame.
And that's the milestone moment here at Friday Night Countdown. How can you even say that? Azorius is clearly the best guild.
You keep saying that, but I'd like to settle this with a little bit of science.
All right, let's see what the standings say.
Well, on the top of the standings, in first and second place, we had 2 players representing the Izzet Guild. We had Yu Watanabe in second place and Stanislav Cifka, the tournament winner, in first.
For Azorius, David Ochoa in third.
I'll take Eduardo Sajgalik in 5th place, representing Simic, any day.
Okay, for Boros, it's Willie Adel, again, in the top 8, in 7th place.
Just missing in 9th place, we have Ari Lax for the Demir Guild.
For the other 5 guilds, Ortov was represented by Miguel Gatica in 12th. For Rakdos, it was Robin Dola of Slovenia in 19th. Then we went down to 36th for Golgari with Paul Heynen from the Netherlands. Selesnya was Thomas Holtzinger in 38th. And for Gruel, Alexander Matviev in 40th place. So you see, this time, my guild was the best.
Is it?
To choose your guild and find out more, visit guildsofravnica.com. Here at Card Kingdom, the tournament room is packed with gamers each and every Friday night.
We're just coming off a Pro Tour that saw the debut of Return to Ravnica, and here are a few of the new cards you should be thinking about for your Friday Night Magic. All 3 abilities of the Deathrite Shaman were on full display this weekend, whether it was powering out turn 2 Geralf's messengers, gaining precious life, or foiling people's graveyard plans, and all for just 1 mana.
Whether it was killing creatures, artifacts, planeswalkers, or anything that cost 3 mana or less, Abrupt Decay was a powerful tool in the Jund players' arsenal this weekend. The fact that it cannot be countered was the cherry on top of this Golgari-flavoured sundae.
Niv Magus Elemental was the centerpiece of the deck that was the talk of the tournament early on Friday. The deck design space opened up by this unique card is sure to be examined further in multiple formats.
Just like Deathrite Shaman, all 3 abilities on Izzet Charm were in use this weekend. Whether you were countering spells, digging into your library while stocking your graveyard for Snapcaster Mage, or simply just killing a creature, Izzet Charm was the right tool for a variety of jobs.
Okay, how many ways can your deck win? It had better be more than one, because the pros were packing slaughter games. This uncounterable sorcery exiles all copies of a card, no matter where it may reside in your deck.
The return to Ravnica also meant the return of the Shocklands, making them more accessible to players building modern mana bases. Expect them to make an even bigger impact in Standard. And that's our show. Thanks for being with us here on Friday Night Countdown. What are you making?
I'm making a growth chamber omelet, but it won't be ready until Pro Tour Gatecrash in February.
Join us then. Until then, for Brian David-Marshall, I'm your host Richard Hagan, saying bye.